Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
All right, well, this is take two, and I'm trying this again. If it looks awful again, I don't know what to tell you, and I'm going to be upset. I'm also upset about Lane Johnson and Avonte Maddox. So, I don't know how I'm starting this show right now, but welcome on in to Sports Talk with Broads. I need to know if the visual is okay. So if you are watching on the live, okay, we are getting people in the chat saying it looks better. Hallelujah. Let's get started. I hope everybody had a fantastic holiday, as this is probably the worst time of the year. The couple of days after the holiday, because you have to wait so long until it happens again. Anyway, all right, horrendous start to the show, but let's dive into it. I'm scared. I'm scared about this Lane Johnson injury. The Avonte Maddox one seems significantly worse, and it's not like I have a lot of trust in Josiah Scott. It's not as if I feel good about Reed Blankenship. And hell, we heard from Nick Sirianni on Monday state that, yeah, while C.J. Gardner-Johnson can return from IR, there's still some tests that need to be done with the lacerated kidney. So where are we? Injuries, sometimes it's about timing. And with the 49ers, they had some injuries. They started to get healthier. And then because of the timing of those injuries, they're on the full force right now, winning a ton of football games. The Eagles have an issue at quarterback at the moment, although I feel pretty good about that one. Lane Johnson, they say he's down and out for the rest of the regular season, and then it's to be determined the rest of the way. This is courtesy of Ian Rappaport when all the news broke. I don't know. I mean, this is what we know. He suffered an abdominal injury. He's out for the rest of the regular season. It's to be determined after that. Now, here's some quotes that I jotted down. He's been dealing with it for the last little bit, and it's not a small injury. Pretty legit. Now, that doesn't surprise me because I even brought this up on the postgame show. When he went down and you saw the replay of what happened, yeah, I mean, Lane Johnson doesn't just do that. Lane Johnson, normally when there is something bothering him, you're going to know. Okay? Now, that means, from what Ian Rappaport said, that he has been dealing with some sort of pain with it or some sort of degree of what was going on. But, I mean, with maybe a movement that occurred throughout that snap, well, something happened. I mean, it does not look good. And I think what they're trying to sell us is that he can be ready for the postseason. I don't feel good. That's all. I mean, that's the moral of the story as I sit here this morning is, I don't know. I mean, come on now. Lane Johnson, an abdominal injury? I feel like this is them just hoping and praying that he will be back in action. And this is a pretty problematic position. You might have someone like Jack Driscoll who can hold the fort down. And there's still a lot of great offensive linemen on this team. But there's a difference with what this organization has been able to do successfully when he's on the field and when he's off the field. Now, there's a lot of people maybe upset with the stat that's flying around because how does a team 4 years ago relate to a team right now? It's a totally different head coach. It's a totally different coaching staff. It's a totally different quarterback. Is there a correlation or not? I mean, when you see the numbers, they're pretty telling, okay? Since 2016, including the playoffs, the Eagles are 59-29-1 with Lane Johnson in the lineup. They're 9-21 without him. And then this is courtesy of Pro Football Focus, which I'm not the biggest fan in the world of, but Lane Johnson has given up just 9 pressures all season long and hasn't given up a sack in the last 28 games. Can you get by the New Orleans Saints with Jack Driscoll? Or if you want to put Mailata over at right tackle and throw Andre Dillard in at left tackle, which I guess is possible, but I would stick with the Jack Driscoll concept until you need to make an adjustment, until that doesn't pan out, which I think it can be fine against the rest of the way. But is it about the rest of the way anymore, or is it about making it to the promised land where the games actually matter? And all season long, they've been pretty fortunate. There have been injuries, but the injuries were a 4-week stint. where Dallas Goedert missed a couple weeks. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, it might bleed into a little bit more than just a couple of weeks, but you were progressively getting your players back. Week after week, someone was getting added. This is a big blow at the wrong time. We don't even know the quarterback's current position right now, right? Now, if you ask me, would you feel comfortable with Gardner Minshew playing against the Saints at home with the banged-up offensive line and with the defense without certain players? Yeah, I do. I think I feel comfortable, and you can wrap up the job. It's a big spot to put him in. And I thought he did good for what it's worth. Those interceptions, one was a stare down, but still, come on, Quez Watkins, show us a little bit more toughness, will you? And the fumble with Boston Scott, not his fault. The Sanders fumble, not his fault. He's a backup quarterback who was asked to go on the road against the Dallas Cowboys and go clinch this number 1 seed. It's a lot. I'm more pissed off with the defense than the offense. There's offensive players I'm aggravated with. But it's not really Gardner Minshew, even though the stat sheet and the box score will tell you a totally different story. Should he be able to on the road after getting a week? I'm just saying, I don't know who they're going to play. I don't know what quarterback is going to get thrown out there. But I don't want to put Jalen Hurts in a position that isn't the greatest. If he's ready to play, fine. If he can go, absolutely. But if he's 60% can go, I don't think the risk is worth the reward. I got to look at everybody else in the room and say, step the hell up. This is on you. Jalen Hurts has your ass 90% of the time, 95% of the time. He's doing everything he can to get you the W. Now, it's your turn to return the favor. There's too much talent on this team. If Jalen Hurts wasn't to play against the Saints, to lose that football game at the Link with all the stakes on the line. There's too much. If you're prepared and you're focused and you're mentally engaged to play your best game, not Darius Slay half-assing it, not Darius Slay having a piss-poor game. If you do your job, there's too much talent on this team to not win, even with a quarterback position being Gardner Minshew. If it's a 60% Jalen Hurts, I don't want to deal with that. Even if it's a 70%, we see how important it is because I know what my heart did the moment I saw the report that Lane Johnson had a pretty bad injury. I don't want that feeling about the quarterback. As much rest as humanly possible is what I'm searching for. If it's in the 85, 90% range of Jalen Hurts, all right, then I'm more willing to have the conversation. But I'm trusting Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen, and everybody else who comes together to make that decision, to make the right decision. I'm more looking at the big picture. And that was my number 1 takeaway against Dallas. Yeah, it sucks to lose to that team. Yeah, it sucks the way that it happened. Double-digit leads multiple times. You're up 10-0 after a Josh Sweat pick 6. You're up 27-17. You shoot yourself in the foot constantly. Like, it was legitimately disgusting at times. Miles Sanders, dude, come on now. You cannot fumble that football. Jonathan Gannon, you irritate me at times. All of this is real, and all of this is legitimate. The first thing I stated on the postgame show was, my biggest issue with what just happened is watching Lane Johnson go down. There's not many players that you can afford to lose on a team. And he's absolutely at the top of the list. And every time you hear somebody say that, you go, well, you thought that the same thing in 2017, didn't you? With all the injuries, everybody going down. Cornerbacks, tackle, Big Vitae, Big V. You're right. But I don't want to rely. Hold on, let me get this straight. And I know he's at a different part in his career now. Did you watch Nick Foles on Monday Night Football against Herbert? Did you see that? Okay, so that man won Super Bowl MVP. How? I have no idea. I don't want to rely on that type of miracle to be the reason why the Eagles win. Now, if it happens to be that way, I'm not taking it away from anybody. My point is, I want to play the percentage game. And there's a higher percentage to win if you just have everything clicking compared to, well, we had a miracle run. I'm nervous. I'm nervous with Lane Johnson. Now, there's a difference between being nervous and saying they can't do something. They absolutely can still do a lot. It just makes it that much harder. The error, the margin, right? We're talking about how much you lose in Lane Johnson. All the details matter that much throughout the game. Basically, imagine being a quarterback, right? And Lane Johnson just doesn't allow a sack. I'm sure when you're in the pocket and when you're scanning the field, the right side of the line, you don't even think about it. Like, it's not even a cross in the mind of that right side of the line. Not for a second. Because for years, let me say this again. For years, you didn't have to get sacked from that side of the line. For years. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't add up. That's not a real statistic in the National Football League. You just don't get sacked. This is now going to open up the door for that to happen to some level. Like I said, look, I'm not rolling this team out to do the special deed, all right, to get us another Lombardi trophy. For Howie Roseman to say, hey, look at me, bastards. I got 2. What are you going to say now? I'm not rolling anything out. My point is, I'm feeling more nervous today than I have all season long because of this injury. And even if he does return, is he going to have that same explosiveness? We'll use the percentage thing again. If Lane Johnson is 65%, and look, 65% of Lane Johnson is probably better. No disrespect to Jack Driscoll. This is putting Lane Johnson on the pedestal as the best right tackle in all football. Probably better than anybody you could put at 100% on this roster right now. I don't really like the idea of putting Andre Dillard at left tackle and moving Mailata to right. I don't think that the difference in Driscoll and Dillard, I might even like Driscoll a little bit more. I say that now, and maybe my view will change as I watch him take some snaps if he doesn't excel and he doesn't, handle his business. But ultimately, I think I run with that for the beginning. What you have to do now in the secondary is figure out what you're going to do with Blankenship, with Josiah Scott. Josiah Scott's getting called out by Darius Slay after the game, basically. So he was put in a tough position. But look, this is what we know. He's got a toe injury, and he's going to be out indefinitely. And apparently this is a significant toe injury. With the news from Nick Sirianni that C.J. Gardner-Johnson still needs some tests, which is with his lacerated kidney, this makes things a little bit more not secure. Because what I would say to do, you have 2 options, just like we did with the offensive line. Here's your options. Blankenship at safety, C.J. Gardner-Johnson at the nickel in the slot corner, or you keep C.J. Gardner-Johnson in his safety role where he was a ball hawk and he was getting all those interceptions, and you keep Josiah Scott maybe in the slot. I'm going with option 1. I prefer Blankenship and C.J. Gardner-Johnson over Josiah Scott and C.J. Gardner-Johnson. With that said, you might not have C.J. And if you don't have C.J., now things are going to get a little bit ugly. Now, do the New Orleans Saints have enough to expose you in those areas? I would like to say no. And only needing 1 win. This goes back to looking at everybody else in the room. Brandon Graham, Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, Sue, Slay, Bradbury, Hassan Reddick, who's been a monster, Javon Hargrave, Sanders, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. And I go, put it together. We got enough in here. Now, clearly, you're not going to say this to the team, but, it's sort of along the lines of this should be the message. I don't care who's out there. Josiah Scott, Reed Blankenship, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Listen to those names I just listed before them. Go win this football game. No excuse. Go win this football game. There's too much in this room. Well, there's holes on this roster right now due to injury. We have a job to do. And when you guys play to your capability, it shouldn't be a question. And that's what the mentality has to be. So we're kind of balancing what we are looking at for the rest of this regular season with the long-term effects. But it sounds like there's more of a possibility that Lane Johnson can get back out there. With Avonte Maddox, it might be all she wrote for the rest of the season. And I'm at a point now where I trust a Reed Blankenship and a CJ over anything Josiah Scott puts out there on the field. But there's a lot more that has to happen than just that when you look at the Dallas Cowboys game and the result. Because it was sloppy. And you have to just execute a lot better too. Blown coverages left and right. I don't know how against that type of team you're just not ready to compete. It doesn't add up to me at all. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm in this really weird, uncomfortable position. I still believe in this team. There's just a lot of unknowns at this particular time. Who's starting quarterback this week? I feel good about Hurts long term. I feel average about Lane Johnson long term. And then Avonte Maddox, it's basically written in my head that you won't see him again. So that secondary is what it is. I'll just use what I've been saying pretty much all show long, even with the long term. If you have a healthy Jalen Hurts back or a decently healthy Jalen Hurts back for the postseason, if Lane Johnson can play, even without an Avonte Maddox, there should be enough here to still do some scary things. It's a big if, though, on the right tackle. And then I guess let me throw this hypothetical out there. If you're in a playoff game with Jalen Hurts, no Avonte Maddox, no Lane Johnson, and Jack Driscoll is in the right side, but everything else is intact. Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelsey, Isaac Seumalo, and Jack Driscoll. It's not the worst offensive line you can go into a playoff game with. Trust me. But how does that right side hold up? With Jeff Stoutland at the helm. I have to admit, majority of the time, it's not bad. Majority of the time, we praise him more than we praise a lot of people in this town because, well, damn it, he's incredible. But there's such a difference when you go from a Lane Johnson, like you're talking about the best right tackle to play for years. The best right tackle to play the game in a long, long, long time. You can still win a ton of football games with a Jack Driscoll over there. It's more about how elite you had it. More so than what's there now. But it just shows you the drop-off on how much of a weapon Lane Johnson really is. And you don't know what you have until it's gone type of thing. I don't know. Sirianni was stated saying everything is on the table in regards to what they can do with the offensive line. It's a weird spot, honestly. I don't know how to feel. That's my issue, which is problematic considering my job on this show is to give you my opinion and let you know how I feel. I can't put a finger on it because it's a lot. And there's a lot that's up in the air as we start to reach the playoffs, as we start to finish out this regular season, and then we get an update. Hey, it looks like C.J. Gardner-Johnson's test came back, and we're looking for a week from now, or we're looking for a couple weeks. He'll be good. He'll be ready. We're going to get him up to speed. We got good information on the test. But let's be honest. Let's look at this side of it. Still getting tests done. No, maybe this is a follow-up. They got tests before. Now they're getting more tests to see what's going on. I'm not messing around with no lacerated kidney. You see how this league goes sometimes. If I'm Tua, I'm not playing again this season. Concussion protocol again? Some things just ain't worth it. And you got to protect the player from the game. Protect the player from themselves, really. A lacerated kidney, I ain't messing around. So I don't know what level of tests these are. Are these still tests? Like, is this a follow-up test to see where things are? Is this more tests because they didn't get what they were looking for from the original diagnosis? You know what I'm saying? Like, I have no idea where that's at. And I'm not pushing for him to just get back out there. The lacerated kidney. Take as much time as you need. It's a lot going on right now. A lot going on. We'll do some text messages. We have anytime hotline calls, too. So, Murph, if this is Murph, what's up, Murph? If this is another Murph, hello, other Murph. I just have a good friend named Murph. I don't know if this is him. I guess I could look at this number on the Google number and look at my number and my contacts and put the two together. But that would... No, see, now my Face ID has to unlock my phone, and I typed in my passcode. I don't care. I'll find out later. All right. Murph says, Lane Johnson being injured is probably the worst thing that could happen behind losing the quarterback. No. What if this was Darius Slay? Removing the fact he's coming off of a bad game. Kelsey? ? Is there anyone worse? Is there anyone else that you could have lost over? I mean, losing Jason Kelsey's a big deal considering he snaps the football. I'm excited about Cam Jurgens in the future, but yeah, if you lose a Jason Kelsey, that's just as problematic. Let's say this. This is probably a simpler way to do it. If you were to list the worst possibilities, and I don't want to do that because who the hell wants to talk about their football team in fear of people just getting injured the whole time, because that's not fun or right. But the quarterback position, so Jalen Hurts, Lane Johnson, Jason Kelsey, A.J. Brown going down would lose a lot, and he even got hit low and looked like he was holding his legs there when he was down on the ground for a little bit of time. But losing A.J. Brown, I mean, yeah, of course, you can slot over a Devontae Smith to be your number one, which is not a bad option considering these guys get 1,000 yards in a season together. But that would mean there's more Quez Watkins. We got to get rid of this Quez Watkins thing. Dallas Goedert can be more incorporated. I'm taking Zach Pascal at this point. I'm going to get Travis Fulgham and Greg Ward and you name it, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside to go over what Quez Watkins is giving us right now because he's playing like a little you-know-what. What a mess he is. But yeah, losing A.J. Brown, Darius Slay, those are probably it. So he's at the top. Outside of the quarterback, yeah, he's at the top. Him, Kelsey, Slay. And here we are. Talking about two of those. Two of them! With a couple weeks ago. But, and this is a big but. We like big butts. That's right. How about that? It's a good one for me. I was chuckling myself. You know, it's a good one when you make yourself laugh. Or you think you're funnier than you really are. And I don't know which one this is. But anyway. Being 13-2 at this point. All the ass kickings and all the games you find out how to win, even though it's ugly, and it might not satisfy you when you play Monday morning quarterback, but the fact that you got the W is extremely important. All those wins gives you an extra week. Because I still have 100% faith they get that NFC home field and they get the bye and all that stuff, right? Well, all those ugly wins that might have not have satisfied you through the regular season because of the way it looked, or the offense was stale, or whatever. The defense got shredded, but the offense bailed them out, whichever way it was. The special team sucked, but there was a big play defensively that helped them win. Whatever it was. Now, at this time of the year, you can get that extra week when guys are dealing with this level of pain. When this type of news is constantly getting thrown out of the NovaCare complex. Think about how important that is. Because if that wasn't the case, if we were worried about playing that first weekend, the tone is so much different. Ronnie texted in, this is in all caps, I never want to see Josiah Scott again. Gannon has to do everything and anything to decrease his time in the secondary. He doesn't know his assignments. He's not good enough. And now we have to mess around with C.J. Gardner-Johnson to fix it. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to handle this. Maybe they keep Josiah Scott and they allow CJ. Maybe they value what CJ was able to do at safety and to be a playmaker, get his eyes on the football, turn the ball over, and put the team in a good position. You know, maybe they value that at the way he was playing here. Forget what was happening in New Orleans. Forget where he was playing in other stages in his career. What he was doing here before he got injured was leading the league and picking off the other team, okay, and finding a way to intercept the quarterback. They value that enough where they go, Josiah Scott, just be better, and we'll live with some hiccups because he's playmaking. Or you change things up. You know, when you see a player like CeeDee Lamb and the way Kellen Moore and the Dallas Cowboys get him active, get him moving, and then finding ways to get him open over the middle, I don't think you can allow a Josiah Scott to get torched the way that he did. There's a difference between some tough moments and getting beat and then how bad it was on Sunday or Saturday. To be fair, there were games that Josiah Scott has played where it didn't look that bad, where there weren't as many miscues as that. But that was, you shouldn't be dressed bad. There's a difference between you get outbeat because, well, the other guy's better than you, but you still hold your own. You allow maybe 2 plays throughout the game that hurt. Don't get me wrong. It hurts, but corners get beat. But the rest of your game was sound. The rest of your game was structured. The fact that there was like no structure in a lot of these back-breaking plays, I think was problematic. And you can't allow for that to happen. So there's certain things you can live with. And there's been certain games where you can live with Josiah Scott. That Saturday effort, you can't. And if that's what you're going to get, well then, I don't think you can live with what CJ brings you if Josiah gets burnt and makes as many mental mistakes as he made. All right, let's rip phone call here. Let's go to Sean.
Yeah, again, kind of what we expected with the injury news with the Eagles. You know, the Lane Johnson injury, yeah, anytime you tear a tendon in your abdomen, that doesn't sound good under any circumstance. But, in my opinion, the Eagles can get by there, at least in the regular season, with Jack Driscoll. I have confidence that Stoutland can prep him and, you know, maybe have another running back over there to help him if needed to mask the loss of Lane. But Avonte Maddox being out, look, any scenario where Josiah Scott has to play significant minutes against anybody is a bad thing. I just don't know how you cover up the loss of Maddox. It's a lot to ask of Chauncey Gardner-Johnson coming back off IR to just step into a slot position, but, you know, that's what we're going to have to do. It is a next man up mentality. You have to get this stuff wrapped up against the Saints. You got to hope that the bye weeks and the time off, that these guys' bodies heal quickly, because injuries are the great equalizer. They can stop a team dead in their tracks if they start to mount up.
You're not wrong there. You're not wrong there at all. I think that's a fair way to kind of say it towards the end is, when you start having to go into your second layers and you have to go into your backups and whatnot. There's a reason why this team was 13-1 and this team was rolling when majority of the players were healthy. A few guys sidelined, but when you get to the postseason and you're missing some significant players and the disparity in talent isn't as large, right? You can handle not having Dallas Goedert in a 4-week span when you're playing certain teams. When you're in the NFC Championship game and guys are down. It's not the same. And look, you can only play what's in front of you. I'm not knocking what they did throughout the regular season. There are certain levels to a regular, to a full season, to a journey, right? You grade a regular season first month different than this time of year. This time of year, there's a difference between what Aaron Rodgers has to go through right now with this Green Bay Packers squad, with their backs against the wall, trying to sneak into the postseason. The Miami Dolphins, things look a lot different now compared to where they were in the certain stage of their season when they were racking off a bunch of W's. There's different sections of the season, and there's certain expectations, and there's different ways to view it based off of the months and based off the calendar. Well, this time of year, things get different. You view it all differently. And especially when you're in the playoffs, the level that you're going up against, it goes back to that margin. When you're thinking about errors that can happen, it's so tiny when you're healthy this time of the year. After the regular season, that is. Imagine what it's like when you're dealing with injuries and a real talented team comes to your barn. Not saying they can't. I still feel strongly that they can do some serious winning in the postseason. All year long, though, I felt extremely confident. Like, good luck coming to the link. Good luck coming to South Philadelphia. The Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. That's pretty much been how I felt all year long. Like, yeah, they're going to do it. They are going to win the Super Bowl. Now, I'm like, I still think they can. See the difference? I still think they can. With Lane Johnson and with guys still here, Avonte Maddox, CJ Gardner-Johnson coming in, they're winning the Super Bowl. Now I still think they can. So I still feel they can, right? Which is important. And who knows? I can get back to that. I'm not saying I can't go back to thinking it's a lock. It just comes with what level of CJ Gardner-Johnson do we get when he does return? Can Lane Johnson play? What's the update on Jalen Hurts? And we'll see. We'll wait to hear. Thank you guys so much. You're the greatest. Appreciate you guys hanging around and dealing with all my technical difficulties. It's always something here. Appreciate it. Catch you guys on the next one.